It's time to do 55 minutes of business. That's what we do on Business Incorporated. It's going to be different today. Here's what we have prepared for you for the next 55 minutes. It's International Youth Day. We'll talk about attracting more youth into the agricultural space in Nigeria. There are more efforts to reduce load shedding when it comes to electricity supply in South Africa. We'll bring that to you also. Not very good ties between Zambia and Democratic Republic of Congo. The border around them is short. Good afternoon, welcome to the program. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We start from the global space as usual. Oil prices rose for a fifth consecutive session on Monday, holding on to last week's more than 3% gains as U.S. recession fears eased, while geopolitical tensions in the Middle East supported prices. Let's look at the numbers. We see it's green, 0.3% for Brent, but not yet back to $80, which is a comfortable place for that product. $79.88, and then for WTI, $77.20 after it went up 0.5%. The market is also awaiting news on Iran's response while Israeli incursion into Gaza intensified over the weekend. And of course, there's also eye on China, looking at China's inflation, which rose faster than expected in July. Of course, we still have some impacts still coming from the U.S. weekly jobs claims, which fell more than expected last week. And then still in the oil space, but in Nigeria, Dangote Petroleum Refinery and Petrochemicals has confirmed the allocation of 29 million barrels of crude by the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, that's the NUPRC. While they appreciate the agency for this, a statement signed by the company's Group Chief Branding and Communications Officer, Anthony Chejina, notes that NUPRC has admitted that they will be unable to enforce domestic crude supply obligations specified by the Petroleum Industry Act because of what they term sanctity of contracts. In the commodities space, gold prices struggled for momentum on Monday as investors looked forward to a key inflation report that could shed more light on the United States Central Bank's next policy move. Let's look at the board right here for the numbers. We see spot gold dropped 0.13% at $2,427.86 per ounce. U.S. gold futures also dropped 0.3%, $2,466.40. And then when we look at others right there, we see spot silver also in the red, 0.3%, $27.36. Platinum down also $917.83, and palladium also dropped 0.2% to $903.48. So expectations on that U.S. Consumer Price Index is due on Wednesday and is expected to show that headline and core prices rose 0.2% year on year. So counting down to September to see if really there'll be a rate cut in the United States this year. Yes, it's a World International Youth Day, celebrating the youth, eyes on them, empowering them. Of course, that's the conversation that's been going on. We had one of such earlier today during Business Incorporated with the director of United Nations Information Center in Nigeria.
Do we have digital economy strategies at state level? At federal level, yes, we even have a strategy on AI, but do we have that at state level? Do we invest enough in innovation? Do we invest enough in STEM education? If not, we will have a problem of having our young people left behind. So that is really our second message. The third message is that the digital economy also comes with its dangers, including the dangers, the concerns we have about cybersecurity, the concerns I have mentioned about exclusion. In Nigeria, for instance, you have about 30 to 40%, depending on the state, of people who are financially excluded. But we know that there are so many digital platforms that can aid financial inclusion. And many African countries, actually, financial inclusion is 90%. A lot needs to be done there. Other issues are, for instance, with the advent of AI, the loss of jobs that will happen, but also the opportunities for jobs that will come. So there are those. So the third thing I'm talking about are the threats we should know about if we don't strategize around the digital economy, which we should work on as governments, as organizations, as academia, and all people to support the young people to become integral parts of the digital economy.
So we're still on that, celebrating the youths, the day, August 12th, globally, everybody's celebrating the youth. But I guess it should be beyond today, yes? Because the youth are the future of tomorrow. They say, when will the future come? But that was in the morning. Today we're looking at when we look at the resources in Nigeria, which is abundant in the agricultural space, how we can attract the youth or more youth there. Into the agricultural space. Food insecurity is a major challenge for the country. So if we have a number of youth in there, perhaps that could help. And we're having this conversation in the studio with agricultural development professional, Mr. Paul Tokumbo Laniyo. Mr. Laniyo, thank you so much for joining us today. So do I say happy Youth Day to you? Well, some people are young by age, others are young by mind. So I don't know.
I'm actually young by age, by mind, by look.
What's the age for youth?
Well, I think for me, up to 40 years, thereabouts.
Up to 40 years? Yeah. Okay,
Again,
all right.
I think there are variants. Some look at 45, but I think up to 40 years looks fair enough.
Okay. So the theme for this year, Clicking to Progress, actually kind of gives the perception that we should be looking at ICT and the digital world and all of that, but we'll also not lose track of what we need the most in Nigeria, which is obviously food security. And Absolutely. We have a huge abundance of potential in the agricultural space, which seems to be untapped. And we seem to be losing the interests of the youth in that area. How important is it to get the youth looking the way of agriculture?
Well, first, thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Adeoye Laniyo Tokumbo, and I work for IITA, the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture. What we do, we're a research-based institute, and essentially we are the flagship as far as agriculture is concerned in Africa. We're part of the CGIAR, which is Constitutive Group for International Research in Agriculture, based in Montpellier in France. Our focus really is to bring agriculture to the fore of businesses everywhere. And one of the things we want to do is how do we encourage youth to embrace agriculture. As you said, it's a huge space where everybody can actually play. And the theme for this year is from clicks to progress, youth pathway to sustainable development. What this means is looking at the digital space as a space where people can actually grow business. But particularly, what we are looking at, as far as we are concerned in IITA, is bringing the youth to the agricultural space for them to actually come, play, and exhibit their capacity.
So how do we do that?
How we do
Looking
that?
Looking at the realities in Nigeria, beyond the texts and policy and paperwork, in reality.
Okay, first of all, as we'll know, technology is an enabler of opportunity. So being a digital space is being able to actually navigate the digital landscape to improve whatever you are doing. And in IITA, our focus in what we call the IYA, the IITA Youth in Agriculture, is how do we really push or bring the youth into the agri space for them to be able to embrace that space and indeed do very well. The IYA was created in 2012, and I can tell you from our records, we've been able to do as much as over 1 million beneficiaries that we brought into that space for them to really see agriculture as a business. Maybe I should say this very quickly. Agriculture is not just agriculture, it's not agribusiness. So there's a business dimension to agriculture. And the business dimension means, as you know, businesses are going concerns. And if they're going concerns, then it means if you bring the youth into the agri space, they can own a business, and indeed the business can be striving, the business can grow, the business can be making money. And I think one sure way also is to reduce unemployment, which is actually a major challenge in Nigeria today. So the IY, as I said, the IITA Youth in Agriculture intention is clearly how do we bring the youth into the agri space by providing training, providing learning, building their capacity in any field of their choice, be it in horticulture, in aquaculture, in poultry, and so on and so forth, and for them to have those skills and be able to indeed become expert in the field ultimately.
So, I think one of our realities in Nigeria is training the youth is one thing, but actually getting them to do it, because even existing farmers, we're talking of agriculture, we're talking of technology, being an enabler of opportunities and all of that. And that seems to be the only way we can get the youth, because I don't think any youth of today want to carry hoe and cutlass. They want equipment, they want things to be sophisticated. And then who starts the circle? Who funds, this capital? Who funds this equipment? Okay. Even after the training, they need to be empowered with such capital-intensive equipment if they are going to start to really work.
Okay, like I said first, agriculture is agribusiness, it's a business. So we provide the training opportunities. And when we provide the training opportunities, we have the requisite knowledge, requisite manpower, and incredible talent within our own team, the IYA that I mentioned earlier. And part of what we do is, after we do the training, we don't just leave the youth to be on their own, and you are right. First of all, it's an agribusiness, and you have to leverage on technology to become an expert. It's not the time of using hoes and cutlasses. That time has passed. It's now a time of mechanized agriculture. So what we do is, apart from the training, we also make sure that the youth have opportunities in terms of financial linkage, because you need some financial capacity to be able to grow your business. We also provide, I think this is very important, mentorship. So we don't just train you, we give you guidance, we give you coaching, we give you mentorship to be able to see you to really grow in the path you have chosen. Another area I think it's important for us to emphasize is where what we call the value chain in agriculture. It's not just agriculture per se, it's agriculture with the various areas of specialization. So you can be, for example, an expert in production, can be an expert in processing, an expert in sales, an expert in marketing, an expert in logistics. And so across all those value chains, IITA, the IYA team, gives opportunity for the youth to be able to exercise their capacity and grow within those fields.
So at what point do you capture the youth? So is it in the secondary school, the university, postgraduate? At what point? Okay,
good point. Various levels actually. We have something we call the STEP, STEP, Start Them Early Program, which is where we carry the young people from secondary school, because again, many of our parents want our children to become doctors, to become engineers, to become pharmacists and what have you. So because agri is agri-business, so we are letting them know that agri is also an area or a profession where you can actually grow. So we have what we call the STEP, Started Early Program. We can also capture them from youth age, meaning whether you went to school or not, we can also capture you, and so on and so forth. So apart from the steps that I mentioned, those who are educated, we can give them a training within the area of what we call the entrepreneurship, meaning we give you training to enable you own your personal business. Then we have various types of learning, various types of training. So you can be either educated or non-educated. If you're educated, it is within the space of entrepreneurship. If you are not educated, we call them young farmers, for example, meaning you have some learning within the agri space, but we come and give you better ways for you to understand how do you really run your business. I mean, how do you run the agriculture into a business for you to grow into an expert, and for you indeed to begin to make money. So as I said, it's from secondary, from whether you're educated, if you're not educated, it all depends on where we can actually pick you from.
So, I mean, you hear a lot of people talk about, when I was younger, we used to have garden behind our house. Even in schools, I think there used to be days where you have to, you plant, you have a plant, you tend to weeds and things like that. I wonder if we have such things now. So I'm just trying to say, do we need this reorientation to go back to the basis? Maybe homes, even though you don't have a lot of space for that now. Every place seems to be a house where people pay rent for.
Very, very point. I think valid point. In Lagos, for example, one of the things we encourage what we call urban agriculture. Meaning because of space issue. I mean, Lagos is the smallest city in Nigeria with 3,500 square meters. And so we encourage people to grow agriculture within their backyard. I mean, people build houses and then what you see are just interlocked within their space. Instead of using the interlock, you can begin to grow your vegetable, begin to grow your tomato.
Space, because I mean, after the house is the car park. After the car park, perhaps the play space for the children. So where do you use that as a car? This is our reality today.
They are reality, but we are saying we need to change the mindset of our people to begin to be deliberate and intentional in providing such opportunities within their space. Anyway, like I said, we talk about urban agriculture in Lagos State because of space challenges. And apart from that, because of the use of technology, you can actually, I mean, you don't need huge space. I think that's, again, the mindset that people have. They believe you need to have a huge space to grow agriculture. No, you can actually have a small space and begin to grow your business. You can have a small space, for example, to do what we call broader business for poultry. You need a small space to do to grow fish farming, which is aquaculture. And for example, you can have a tank, GP tank, you cut the head, and you grow your fish there. So you don't need a huge space to be able to grow your business. So as I said, it's about maximizing opportunity, maximizing usage, and indeed begin to grow the business because it is about sustainability of the business.
So please share with us, how has the reaction of the youth themselves been? Do you have a lot of youth showing interest in this agriculture, or do you have to push it to them that this is the opportunity to be employed, or entice them with incentives such as that?
Yeah, we do have incentives that we actually use to entice, but I think the first thing we do, first of all, is what we call changing their mindset. Because again, people think generally agriculture is for the downtrodden. Agriculture is for the poor people. Agriculture is for retired people. No, there's a complete change in the dynamics of agriculture. And that's why I call it at the beginning, agribusiness. So we get the youth, and then we run different kinds of programs for them and encourage them to come into the space. I can tell you, within the past decade, we've grown so much in terms of the youth adherence to agriculture. And I think by records, we have over 1 million, for example, that were influenced directly or indirectly in terms of the youth coming into the agri space. By our record, we have close to over 100,000 jobs we have created. We have over 15,000 youth-led businesses that are actually owned by the youths, run by the youths, and then grown by the youth.
Yeah, it would be good to speak to one of those youths.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, but thank you so much, Mr. Paul Tokumbolaniyo, agricultural development professional with the IITA. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Now let's take a break. When we come back from the break, we'll head to the market with Anita Edit. Stay with us. Welcome back. Still watching Business Incorporated here on Channels Television. We head to the markets now with Anita Edit. And the market looks green this Monday afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
A good sign. I hope it to be a green week.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed, it should be a winning week because although last week what we saw was kind of a mixed picture. We saw the market suffering about 2 days of hemorrhaging, and then, of course, being able to make that comeback into the green territory. And
yeah, but the week ended still in the red.
No, I think the market,
yes,
it ended in the green, And this was bolstered by, it was up by 0.87%. And then, of course, the market also gained about 480.3 billion naira. So it's still latching up to that gains, which was largely driven by MTN Nigeria. Oando gained about 60%. And then, of course, take a look at your board there, 97,000, almost 98,000, almost on the corridor of 99,000. All right, so now let's tell our viewers much more about this market, our remarkable market. Year to date, it has come back, although all the way from 35% to about 31.9% year to date. Month to date, in the positive territory, 0.9%, and at intraday, 0.69%. Of course, we see lots of bargain hunting, particularly on the financial services industry, where we have 5 banks now doing their public offers. 2 will be ending today, which is Fidelity Bank and GTCO. So those, and as we speak, Zenith is also doing its fact behind the offers for the market. It commenced its own public offers last week. So that's about for Nigeria's market. But for JSE, the JSE was the laggard there, the only laggard at intraday, 0.11% at intraday, and about 80,648.13 index points. On the other side of the market, we see the other sides. For the other side of the market, we see EGX in the green, as well as Kenya also closing Friday's trading session also in the green. Now, let's talk more about another side of the market, but this time the fixed income side of the market. Many issues there. First, we were supposed to have had, the market was supposed to have the August bond auction, but that has been shifted to the 19th of August, which is sometime next week, Monday. And of course, still talking about that retail Dutch auction where the CBN reintroduced after suspending it for about 10 years. So now, to give us a bigger perspective on that, let's bring in Bosun Obembe, FX dealer and FX and Forex market dealer with Access Bank. Thank you for joining us, Bosun.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so Bosun, I know that when we talk about the fixed income market, last week we saw bearish sentiments across the treasury bills as well as the bond market. But let's talk about the bonds auction that was initially scheduled to hold today but has been shifted. Why was the shift?
So the reason for the shift is not far-fetched. When you look at last week, there was an auction that happened on FX. I know when CBN says dollar, it means that Naira is leaving. So CBN says dollars to bank to buy Naira from banks. So meaning that the system liquidity will reduce. So what we saw last week, there were a lot of outflow from the system. So I think what CBN, the DMO has seen is if the auction should go ahead today, there will be few subscription. So what the DMO did was to move it to next week when there will be improved liquidity in the system. And another thing that happened at the auction is that we saw DMO reducing the amount that it wants to borrow. So before, it was 100 billion each on 2029, 2030, 31, and 33. But the revised calendar sign, so the DMO has reduced from 300 billion to about 190 billion, which is a very positive and interesting one to the market. It means that there's less supply of this bond coming into the market. So as a result of this, we saw some a decline in yield. So we saw some people that had some investors that have gone short on this bond. They tried to come to the market today to cover. So the reason why it was shifted is just to get more subscription. And if you look at it, the previous auction, I think the subscription was lower than what DMO got. So it was moved because of the anticipated subscription, which will have been lower if it has been conducted today.
Okay, all right. So now let's move away from the bond side and to that retail Dutch auction where we saw the CBN. That impact was also felt on the Naira. The Naira gained. Now, but the big question now is that what is this frequency that the CBN will be carrying out this retail Dutch auction? You know, it just commenced just last week after about 10 years.
And so the frequency is not known, but before the new CBN management, we used to have this auction bi-weekly. But now what CBN has done is to actually send a positive signal out to show that they have the capacity to actually stabilize the currency. And they sold about 815 billion, while the Fuga banks, they got about 74.3% of this total sales. So the frequency is not known, but is a very good one. In this auction, what CBN did was to allow Form A and CCI to be presented at the auction, and it was all spot. All the banks that won at the auction, CBN delivered the dollars to them on Thursday. So which shows that CBN has the capacity, thanks to the accretion to the external reserve. So the frequency, I think it is when CBN, CBN is one of the players in the official market. So whenever they see that there is instability, I think they've always been coming in. So what I think they should just do now is to look at the other retail segment they've done for banks. We've seen the impact on the Naira today. We've seen the Naira is trading between 1560 and 1570 today. It's just on the other side that the CBN has to work on so that the rates can actually come down. Looking at where the auction closed, which is 1495, it shows that is the level at which maybe CBN is comfortable for Naira to trade.
Okay, so finally, just within the 20 seconds, what is the current intraday activity for the fixed income markets?
So the fixed income market, on the treasury bill, on the short term, we've been seeing about 20 to 22% yield, and because of the liquidity in the system, yield is trending upward, and because of the reduced amount of a bond that will come at the auction, we've seen interest on all those bonds on offer 20, 29, 31, and 33. So around 20 to 21% yield.
Okay, boss, thank you so much for all of those analyses. And of course, we look out for how the retail Dutch auction will continue to have a positive impact on the fixed income market, particularly on the foreign exchange market. Thank you so much for your analysis on our show.
Thank you for having me.
That was Bosoma Bembe, Forex and fixed income dealer with Access Bank for the fixed income market at intraday. Now, let's talk about the Middle East market. Obviously, most of the indexes there are in the red territory, except for the Dubai FM on the United Arab Emirates, which more than a quarter of a percentage in the green, 0.31%, 4,207.96. But for the Abu Dhabi, it's in the red, 0.41%, and this is because investors are concerned about the ongoing tension in between Russia, Israel, and Iran, whether there's going to be a retaliation on the side of Israel. So all of that is coming into play for the market. On the other sides of the market, we see Saudi Arabia also in the red, the Qatari Stock Exchange also in the red at intraday, and we look out for how those numbers will turn out at the close of Monday's trading session. Now, let's talk about the U.S. market, which is the next stop here. Most of the futures there, except for the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the futures before the market opens at 2:30 were mostly in the green, and this is coming all the way from that last week where we saw a very brutal impact on the market. All the markets across the world, major parts of the world, were hammered by concerns over the health of the U.S. economy. But for stock futures, we see S&P 500 0.14%, NASDAQ tech heavies 0.23%. And now the markets will be looking out for many data this week, starting first with the July Producer Price Index, which is due out on Tuesday, as well as the Consumer Price Index, which will be out for on Wednesday. This is because investors will be looking out for confirmation that price growth has continued to stabilize for the world's biggest economy. And finally, in terms of data, investors will also be bracing for July retail sales, which will be due out on Thursday. And finally, our final stop is for the Asian markets. Obviously, Asian markets mostly in the green, and this is tracking the performance on Wall Street. Only the Shanghai index, which is on China, was in the red. Japan is closed for holiday, but its last close was 0.56%, and falling all the way from that 35,000 point to all the way from 40,000 to just about 35,000, and barely holding on to that level. For South Korea, we see a 1.15% gain there. That's because one of the biggest companies there, SK Hynix, it posted a 225.7% growth in its chip exports to Taiwan. And that's compared to the previous level at which it was. And of course, the company shares has risen by about 3.21%. So that revved up that market. For the Hang Seng Index, 0.13%. And for the other sides of the market, we see a mix of, a negative for Shanghai, as I earlier mentioned. And then for the ASX, which is for Australia, 0.46%. Now, the market will be looking out for inflation, as well as India's other economic report where they're expecting that the industrial output for June expected to come about 5.5%, slightly down from 5.9% in May, while inflation is expected to fall sharply to 3.65%, all the way from 5.08%. So that's it for the market, particularly for Asia, where we see inflation still coming down, or expected to come down in India.
Yeah, and of course, the big one will be on Wednesday, U.S. inflation, and that will determine a whole lot of things. Thank you so much, Anita.
Pleasure.
All right, now let's go to Europe now. Well, Olympics are over. Not very good outing for Nigeria. Yeah, but let's see what it meant or what it did to Germany, to be precise. At this time, we have Lars Holter joining us to tell us if they're happy or not with the result. Hi, Lars. Good afternoon.
Thanks for having me, Ini. Well, here's the deal. Germany was successful in as much as we ended up in 10th position in the medal count, and the goal was to end up in the top 10. But to be honest, that was a very low bar to pass. Number 10 is not very good at all for a country like Germany. We used to be ranked in the top 3 or 4 for decades. In Atlanta in 1996, Germany won 65 medals, with only the US and Russia ranking higher. Ever since, Germany has been in decline, winning fewer medals despite the fact that there are ever more events and more medals being passed out. Now, Tokyo 3 years ago was our lowest point until the medal count in Paris now came in even lower. So lots of people are wondering what's behind this very frustrating trend. And if you ask anyone in Germany's Olympic Federation or even in the different sports associations, they're all saying the same: we are not investing enough. There's not enough money for coaches and state-of-the-art training programs, and even more important, most athletes barely make a living from their sports, with most getting a monthly stipend of a couple of €100, and that leads to many dropping out along the way. Even the rewards Germany pays for Olympic medals, that's €20,000 for gold and then 15 and 10,000 for silver and bronze, are much lower than in other countries. So many athletes don't see how their work even pays off, and that has been taking a toll.
Yeah, well, sadly, that kind of resonates with conversations going on here in Nigeria. So what is it when we say investing more in sports?
It would most certainly be worth it for a few reasons. First of all, successful pros inspire others to pick up sports. We see that all the time. When a country wins the Football World Cup, you see a surge in kids signing up to play. When a country has a tennis player win Wimbledon, you see a surge of kids signing up for tennis lessons. And when a country is doing good in the Olympics, it can lead to more people taking up track and field, swimming, gymnastics, climbing, basically any sport you can imagine. And that is paying a handsome dividend. Healthier people mean less cost within the healthcare system, and that's a big one. Also, sports is a €70 billion business in Germany alone. It's certainly a huge factor in other economies as well. People buy tickets for events or even sports equipment. And here, by the way, Germany has 2 of the world's biggest companies in the field with Adidas and Puma. So an active and enthusiastic population most certainly has an economic impact.
Yeah, I wonder if investors are looking that way today.
Yeah, well, let's have a quick look at what happened right before we headed into this past weekend. The U.S. markets were up after some more comments from the Fed. Most investors are expecting interest rates to be cut soon by at least a quarter, maybe even half a point. And this topic of interest rate policy, as dominant as it's always been, will likely guide us through this in the next couple of weeks as well, especially since we're sometimes experiencing a dearth of market news over the summer months. Anyway, Bank of America has a note out this morning that consumers might become discouraged if the Fed were not to act on interest rates soon. So let's see where all this talk will get us.
Yeah, we'll certainly see, I think, beginning from Wednesday. Thank you so much, Lars. Enjoy the rest of your day. Let's head to Africa now, where a new report by PricewaterhouseCoopers has revealed that up to 87% of MSMEs in the country have seen a decline in demand for their products in the last 2 years. The report is a survey of over 500 micro, small, and medium enterprises across 13 sectors of the economy with annual sales turnover of 5 million naira and above. According to the report, 38% of MSMEs who reported a decrease in demand for their products attributed it to high cost of products, while another 36% noted that it was due to low purchasing power and others. Furthermore, access to financing continues to remain a problem for MSMEs, with around 27% stating that high interest rate is a major barrier discouraging them from getting loans in the country. Also, 26% of respondents in the survey stated that too many procedures were the major barriers, while 16% noted insufficient collateral. The report notes that factors like insufficient collateral and inadequate documentation can be attributed to the informal nature of many MSMEs in Nigeria, particularly micro and small enterprises. And these businesses are often seen as too costly and risky to serve. We head to Zambia, where that country has temporarily shut its borders with its neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo following protests in the DRC over trade dispute, a move that could significantly disrupt exports from the Congo. Zambia's Minister of Commerce, Trade and Industry, Chipoka Malenga, announced the border closure at the weekend, citing the need for precautions after a ban by Kinshasa authorities on how beer led to demonstrations by Congolese transporters in the town of Kusombalisa of the Zambian border. Malenga warns that the closure of the border would result in a buildup of trucks at the entry point. He did not provide a timeline for how long the border would remain closed for. The shutdown will likely have far-reaching implications, as the majority of copper mined in the DRC is transported through Zambia before reaching regional ports for export. The DRC is the world's largest source of cobalt and Africa's biggest copper producer. In South Africa, the Minister of Energy and Electricity is saying that they're working relentlessly to find a solution to load shedding and reduce that in the country. Load reduction is being implemented in areas where there's significant overloading due to illegal connections or other non-compliant behaviors. The minister said that the largest driving force for this form of power cut remained the debts owed to Eskom by municipalities. He said local government was even failing to provide free electricity to qualifying households. And we move to Egypt, where that country is capitalizing on the current dip in wheat prices to purchase nearly a third of its annual wheat requirement in single transaction. The General Authority for Supply Commodities, the country's state-run buyer, announced plans to buy up to 3.8 million tons of wheat in a tender next week. At some point last year, Egypt, one of the world's biggest importers of wheat, began shifting towards direct purchases instead of tenders after the war in Ukraine disrupted its buying process. The conflict reportedly pushed the annual expenditure of African countries on wheat import to $20 billion. Typically, the country buys less than 1 million tons at a time and does not disclose the intended purchase amount. However, for the tender process, the intended purchase amounts and terms are usually publicly disclosed to invite competitive bids, which result in a longer than usual delivery period. In Kenya, the Aviation Workers Union have threatened, as the employees are saying that they will go on strike and from August 19 over an investment proposal from an Indian company, Adani Airport Holdings, at the country's main airport. The strike will likely cause significant disruption to Kenya's national carrier, Kenya Airways, and to operations of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi, which is a key African travel hub. They promised to reconsider to engage in industrial action only if Adani Airport Holdings Limited deal is abandoned in its entirety. It's now time to head to the crypto space and see what's happening. A lot of headlines I saw just before I came on the program. But let's first of all look at the board see a sea of red is what we see there, red of different shades. There's the deep and there's the light red. BTC is not so deep, but it's in the red because it lost almost, well, more than 4%, almost 5%, 4.67%, and it's now at 58,429.39. This was not the color we left here on Friday. Ethereum, I think, is in not so good place this afternoon. Ethereum is down also 3.39% in the red at 2,598. BNB, torn. Solana, everybody's in the red. I wonder what's going on right here. Let's look at the headlines for this afternoon. Yes, we did talk about Ethereum, and we say Ethereum. Okay, so Binance has announced that it's going to remove 15 cryptocurrencies. I think it's beginning from the 1st of September. Binance has been very busy. And then you might want to know some of those coins that will be removed by Binance. Also, Binance is set to convert delisted tokens to USD, obviously connected to that. And then we go to Ethereum. Ethereum there, ETF hit positive overall net inflows of $105 million. We'll talk about this, obviously, and see how it would affect some other layers and all of that. Let's have Solomon Amunde now to help us explain some of these headlines. Hi, Solomon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ini.
Yeah, so this delisting, I think let's start from there, of some coins. Is that a big deal?
Technically speaking, it's not really a big deal. It's just a protocol done by exchanges where they tend to look at their portfolio and tokens that are listed, looking at them trading volume if people are really trading those projects. So if people are not really trading most of those projects, they tend to delist them because at the end of the day, it's business for the exchanges.
Yeah, of course, it's business. If it's not good business, it's not worth doing. Then Ethereum gas fees also hit a 5-year low. How does this affect, the other activities? Does it affect other miners and all of that?
Well, technically, it puts the layer 2 platforms on their toes because most of the layer 2 blockchains, they were created based on Ethereum issues of gas fees. So the only value proposition most of them have is a lower gas fees. So when Ethereum keeps making lower and lower gas fees, they have to come up with better proposition and also value for their audience and also the users of those blockchains. So I would say it does more damage to the layer 2 blockchains that don't have so much to offer other than cheap fees. So they just have to increase and improve on their tech and also their value proposition to their users if they must survive long term in this space.
Does this spill to investor sentiment in the markets, the top markets?
Well, technically speaking, it's a good news because lots of on-chain activities on Ethereum decreased based on the on-chain activities that increased on Solana. So with the lower gas fees now on Ethereum, we are gradually beginning to see more and more on-chain activities on the Ethereum blockchain.
And then this Ethereum ETF hitting positive overall net flow of 105. That's the first since its launch.
Yeah. We've been having lots of ETF outflow, the Ethereum ETF outflow, especially from Grayscale. So it's quite impressive to see that at least we've been able to hit a positive net inflow when you aggregate all the platforms that are offering Ethereum ETF. So that's good news. And I strongly believe that's largely because of the market dump that we saw last week, the beginning of August that happened. So we have lots of persons trying to buy into Ethereum. So I guess that's why we're seeing that positive inflow on the ETF.
So, but I mean, does any of this explain why we have so much red in the markets this afternoon?
Not necessarily. The market is just trying to correct. The market has been trying to correct for the past 3 to 4 months now, but we tend to see lots of fundamental analysis trying to give us a brief pump. So last week we saw the news from Russia where Putin signed into effect the Russia has been allowing miners to be able to mine Bitcoin and also them siding with cryptocurrency traders and also crypto platforms. So that gave the market a positive pump and a positive move, which saw us move from about 58K to almost 62K. So right now, the market is trying to aim for $50,000 again. So what's happening right now is just the usual normal correction that we're seeing in the market.
So do we say that the impact of Kamala Harris and Trump, they also made some move or some statement that moved the market last week? Has that worn off?
I would say yes, it has worn off actually. We would see more of the US election affecting the markets from ending of September. But right now, we won't see much of that affecting the way the market moves. Right now, the market is on its own.
Is it really on its own, Solomon? We're expecting inflation numbers from the United States on Wednesday. Has that been priced in already?
No, it hasn't been priced in. It hasn't. It hasn't been priced in at all. We're still very much expecting that. And hopefully it should affect the markets in a positive way. If it doesn't, then it will be quite brutal for the market. $50,000 per Bitcoin might not hold.
So is the market, are we confident that there'll be that rate cut by September? Do we really see it? And what can we expect, or how can we expect that to affect the market?
The markets, the traders are very confident that towards the end of September, we should start seeing improved prices. We should start seeing much of green in the market, majorly because of the upcoming US election, which should be around November this year. So people are beginning to expect and speculate that based on the hypes and the activities around the whole election, that would begin to create a good environment for most persons to begin to get back into the market, anticipating who the winner of the US election would be.
So do we expect, Solomon, that it is after the election that we'll see the bubble of the halving that we were preaching about since last year? We haven't hit those highs. Should we expect that to come after the US election in November?
Once the election is over, the halving would be priced in from December, January. We would see the halving being priced in. Right now, it hasn't been priced in, and that's majorly because of the ETF. Based on the ETF hype we had from January, price of Bitcoin was already overpriced and overvalued. So that's why we're just seeing a reasonable correction happening right now. But about the hype of the election and the halving being priced in, I would expect that from December, January. That's when I would expect that.
Well, I hope you analysts will not move the stone again, because we're still looking forward to 100,000 Bitcoin after the halving and all of that, and yet now we have to start waiting for the election again. I hope there'll be no other milestone to cross before we see those surge that we have been looking forward to.
Yeah. Hopefully there'll be no more milestones, but most of the hopes now lies on the election, because one of the candidates is a pro-crypto and pro-Bitcoin person, and he has been saying it in most of his speeches that he would make sure America will be the center of cryptocurrency and Web3 and blockchain. So you can imagine what happens after the election, assuming he wins. That would be one of the biggest bull markets we would see.
All right. So for the rest of the week, sounds like we don't expect a lot of move, or you think we would do that 50 this week?
Yeah, for the rest of the week, I'm expecting Bitcoin to consolidate between $55,000 and $60,000. Failure to maintain that range, then would most likely see a retest of $50,000. All
right, so we'll see what happens at the end of this week. Thank you so much, Solomon Amunde, for sharing your views with us.
Thank you very much.
All right, so there you are. I guess a further drop, because we have 58 now. Solomon says a further drop, 55. I think that's what he said for the rest of the week. But of course, investors will also be waiting for that inflation data from the United States on Wednesday, and then see if we are moving closer to a rate cut by September. That, of course, will also be priced in, as well as the election in November in the United States. And just look forward to those days when some of those factors in Nigeria will also determine investors' sentiment in the market. But let's stay where we are now. We'll grow into it, hopefully. But that's it on the program. Thank you so much for being a part of Business Incorporated. Today, it's a Monday, so we have 4 days of fresh journey, 55 minutes every day journey around the world of business. We're sure to give you information that is worth your time. But first, I'll see you tonight later for the stock market report. Hopefully, keeping our fingers crossed, the NGX will keep that positive vibe that it has started the day with. And then I'll see you tomorrow. God's grace. I'm John McCarthy. Bye.